Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West. Here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, and maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines, developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Let's get to it. Story number 1. The marijuana issue remains in top headlines. Bob Coupland has a headline published June 7th, putting the marijuana issue back in the top headlines. Now, this time the issue has to do with money. Now, the article explains how state and local officials representing Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana, and Columbiana counties are seeking the funds promised to them from the sale of recreational marijuana at the dispensaries. Now, the article mentions talking points from each district official when it comes to funding concerns. Folks, this story is still developing. That's for story number 1. Story number 2. How will cuts affect local media? Especially radio. Dan Pompley has a report published June 7th in what appears to be concerns over cuts to local public media. Now, the article homes in on how local media will be affected because earlier this week, the Trump administration sent a bill to Congress to eliminate funding for public broadcasting for the next 2 years. Folks, this includes PBS and NPR. Folks, the article highlights $1.1 billion in cuts. The story is still developing. That's story number 2. Story number 3. Another strange explosion makes headlines. Brandon Cantwell has a report published June 10th reporting on what appears to be another local home explosion. Now, this time the explosion took place in Liberty, and what the report says happened because an occupant of the home appeared to be manufacturing homemade fireworks. Now, the explosion left one man dead, Justin Braun, 34, and 2 other people injured, which included a 4-year-old child. How crazy is that? Now, thus shooting local safety awareness back in the top headlines. That's for story number 3. Made it this week. Story number 4. Girard is yet another city making ambulance adjustments. Bob Coupland has a report out of Girard published June 10th highlighting another ambulance story in top headlines. The article explains how Girard city officials are planning to begin billing outside transports because of increased mutual aid calls the fire department has been making to neighboring communities. Now, that's word for word in the report. Now, the article mentions where every call came from. Now, what got the story in is the fact that there appears to be yet another issue with the cost of local ambulance services. These stories continue to make headlines because every local community needs and wants emergency services, but paying for these services is a problem. Folks, this story is still developing. That's story number 4. Story number 5. $800,000 mishap in Girard. Bob Coupland has a report published June 9th out of Girard after an audit cites abuse and $800,000 pay in what the headline says went to a former Girard treasurer. Now, the report explains in detail how the audit claims that former treasurer Mark Bello was paid more than $800,000 over a 2-year period while working under a retired rehire agreement. Now, the report reveals how Bello received compensation of $461,187 during 2023 and $443,568 during 2024. Now, although Bello resigned, continued accountability when it comes to local budgets is what got the story in. That's why story number 5 made it this week. Story number 6. Money problems a concern in Trumbull County. Raymond L. Smith has a report published June 6, homing in on money woes in Warren. The article states that commissioners were bombarded with requests for more money as several departments and agencies noted they will not be able to finish the year with the budgets that they were given. Now, this is almost word for word in the main idea of the report. Now, the report goes on to explain the money needed to keep up with budget goals. Now, this the article is packed with budget information and is definitely worth a read, thus getting the story into the top 8. That's why I started number 6, also made it to the top 2 this week. Big headline. Story number 7 of the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you don't get up this early and you do want to check out the show, I do upload to the website on Mondays. So if you don't get up this early, you can check out the show on the website on Mondays. The website on the screen. Early Monday. Story number 7, Covelli Center still on solid ground. David Scolding has a report published June 7th informing the local community about the Covelli Center's solid ground. Now the report is financially. Now the report explains how the city-owned venue started 2025 with 3 sellout shows and a $144,689 operating surplus during the first 3 months of the year. Now the entire report is filled with Covelli money-generated thrills. The report even lists a streak of show surpluses, folks. That's getting the story to the top headlines. Almost made it to the top this week. That's our story number 7 made this week. Big. Story number 8 and the top local headline and developing news story that made this week to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want the show to show some support, it does not take much. All you have to do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, order, sponsor a program, or you can stop by the store at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio and see my smiling face in the store. Story number 8, $25 million in Youngstown Air Base, to the Youngstown Air Base. David Scolding has a report published June 6th out of Vienna. Now it appears that the U.S. Department of Defense gave final authorization to spending $25 million for the construction of a new fire station at the Youngstown Air Reserve Station. Now this is word for word in the main idea of the report. Now the report explains how Congressman Ruley says that this is an investment in this investment is a victory for Northeast Ohio. Now the Youngstown Regional Airport employs about 2,000 employees with an economic impact of about $150 million. That's why I started to rate made to the top this week. Well, folks, there are top 8 local headlines developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back.
Tune in and don't forget to subscribe to Method 8 Inc. YouTube channel. You can also watch free public entertainment. And don't forget to show some support by visiting www.method8inc.com by buying something, clicking something, watching something, or just reading something. You can also sponsor a program as well. That's www.method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
What does Method8inc.com Media Center have that I need?
Small prints, event consulting, photography, business consulting, technical consulting, entertainment consulting, fundraising advice, event videography, movies, news, publishing, media, books, entertainment, acting, broadcasting, public relations, access to the visual and performing arts, ink and black ink refills, audio recording, graphic design, theater, minor computer and cell phone repair, and they're located at 5648 Market Street in Boardman, Ohio from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. every Monday through Friday. The list goes on and on.
Method8inc.com. Buy stuff, watch stuff, or read stuff.
Oh yeah! And yes, we are chipmunks.
The nature of a marauder is to obey their orders from the North Star Galaxy. No planet's leader has ever defeated their order leader in battle.
Who are you?
I'm the fighting princess. My planet and kingdom have been surrendered to the marauders.
Icky, get out, they're coming!
I am all that Escobar has left when it comes to order.
Who is the hidden force guiding Escobar?
Really gotta wonder why a guy like you has ended up in a place like this.
I need North Stardust, and as fast as possible.
A huge space rock just crashed in the middle of the backfield. Now when it crashed, little lightning bugs started spreading all over the crops. I don't know what's going on. We gotta go fix it.
I want to tell you that if you give me an army, I promise you that I will strengthen our weak plan.
I will make you what Vector cannot become.
I'm ready to fight to the death.
The stars are sending us a force to help us, but who or whatever they're sending, they're going to end up needing us more than we'll need them.
They're coming. We must prepare for battle.
Who's coming?
Look at Escobar now! Do you see what it has become? We!
I think I know how to end this.
Hey, are you alright? Hey, are you okay?
I'll see you on the other side.
Hey, where are you going? Where are you going? No!
The Land of Escobar Part 5, The Fighting Princess, The Hidden Kingdom, and the Mirror Stones. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Headed into, this Father's Day weekend and Emancipation Day. And the fact that people graduated and this year, a lot of graduates, so congratulations to the graduates. You know, if I was giving a graduation speech and if I were a father and I had kids, I'd probably be saying, talking about finances, you know, the fact that everything costs money. You got labor costs money, the graduations cost money. I'd be trying to get kids to understand money because I don't think a lot of parents or kids either understand money. College costs money. You know, I think people would probably be a little bit more appreciative and less radical if they understood money. You know, maybe protesters wouldn't protest as much if they understood things cost money. When you break things, it costs money to rebuild, and if you don't have the money to rebuild, you waste money. So if we be talking about anything this Father's Day, I'd be talking about accountability. You know, being a father is not cheap. That's probably why a lot of them skip town. Don't want to deal with the mother, don't want to deal with the process because it costs. Child support, even when you separate. You know, could you imagine the judge when they just decided that they were going to get all these women's rights and make men pay child support? You know, that's a big thing. Fathers, a lot of fathers go crazy. You know, they lose their minds. Some of them can't afford their kids, can't even afford their own means of living. So that's a big thing, you know. This week we're focusing on money, finances. Some fathers want to run businesses, they want to be entrepreneurs, but they can't. A lot of people are tied down with money, and that's what we're talking about. You know, if you were headed into a relationship and it's come to find out that your wife or significant other were pregnant with your child, and you start feeling all queasy inside because you can't predict the future and there's so much uncertainty around you. The money has to come from somewhere, you know. You can't just dig it up in the backyard. You can't just grow flowers and sell them in the food market. You have to have a license. That license costs money. Folks, this Father's Day, we are preaching the gospel of money. Let's waste no time, folks. Money is all around us and everything costs. And if you do not know that, you will be a bad, spoiled child, not understanding accountability. Parent, not understanding that things cost money. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 1. The drug war sees progress. NPR has a report explaining how drug deaths have plummeted among young Americans as fentanyl carnage eases. That's good news. Now, a report states that the U.S. drug deaths have dropped by roughly 40% last year among people under the age of 35. Now, the story is filled with encouraging updates, but made it in due to some anticipated news from those waiting for progress in the war on drugs. Folks, that's getting us started into the top 8. That's why story number 1 made it. Story number 2, the first-time home buyers are endangered. CNBC has a report homing in on first-time home buyers. The article states that this particular market is an endangered species in the United States. That's sad. That means my generation. The article begins by explaining how the dream of home ownership is fading for millions of Americans. The article states that only 24% of housing sales last year were by first-time home buyers, which is down from 50% in 2010. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 2 made it. Story number 3, the global economy is ice skating due to tariffs. Axios has a report published June 10th. The headline says that tariffs are pushing the global economy into turbulence, as quoted in the article. Now, the report says that the global economy is on track for the slowest growth of any non-recessionary year since 2008. Now, uncertainty is what has this story still buzzing. Folks, this story made it in because the World Bank's projections are not optimistic right now. That's why story number 3 made it. Story number 4, price update. The Guardian has a report explaining how inflation hit 2.4% in May. This is up from 2.3% in April. The article explains how the uptick is because of Trump's trade war, but does say that Trump has repeatedly pledged to lower costs across the economy. Now, the report even mentions grim economic numbers with 139,000 new jobs, down from an average monthly gain of 149,000 over the prior 12 months. Folks, this story is still developing. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, there are top 4 international headlines, developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with top 4. So don't you go anywhere. The Mediator, me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, this week we're talking about Father's. It's Father's Day. A lot of kids are graduating. It's Emancipation Day, where the day where the slaves were set to be set free in America. You have on the 19th, and I believe it's this week. So shout out to the fathers. The man who raised me, my dad, my stepdad, or I call him my father because he stepped in, as they would say. Stepped in for my real father, who probably just blamed it on my mom, but he stepped in, and I like my dad. I always called him the dad that God gave me, because he probably, just like Christ's dad, God was his father and all. He gave Joseph was his father, Christ. So I was given a father, and I appreciate my dad, but my dad was an interesting figure, and he never disciplined us, but he would, if we were doing something wrong, his favorite line was, "You know better." And I think his favorite show, I used to always watch him. He would always be watching Jerry Springer. And it became catchy because when I would come into the house, I would always notice that him and my mother's relationship was probably just like Jerry Springer. And every time him and my mother would get into an argument, me and my sisters was Jerry, because we knew something was going to be flying or somebody was going to get into it. Now, I always call it because in the inner city jungles, you know, all these men have concubines and they have different women. They're married to one woman. They're players, you know. So that's what happens in the inner city life. And this week we're highlighting money and finances because half of the time my mother and father are probably arguing. That's probably what they were arguing about because everything costs money. And just back then, it cost money to raise kids and to pay the bills. And you know, I hate to say this, but some people who are fortunate actually don't know how good they have it. You know, they go home, even though their kids may be spoiled, but some of these people have stability. And when you're in a low-income houses and you're scraping for cash, that stability is scary. So everybody's always arguing. The kids are in the winter time and they're calculating if the heat's going to get paid, and sometimes things get turned off and you get evicted, and sometimes daddy's not around, folks. So this is what we're looking at in this day and age, where there's a lot of fathers who skip town to try to make money, but they can't get along with the mother. So, you know, Father's Day is important because this is a moment where we set aside to think about the men who are, some of them are unfortunate, some of them look out for themselves, leave their kids, and some of them write letters to their kids. Some of them try to make better lives for their kids, but their kids hate them, can't stand them, never like them. I always show love to each of the people who try to raise me. So I guess I'm a different breed. Some fathers get evil looks from their kids. Some fathers got to face off with their kids. So this Father's Day, we're highlighting that fact, is that if the judge is not going to ease up off the child support, at least the kid can at least try to give their father a card or go visit them or do something, because it's not easy being a man. It's not easy being a woman. And when you have to pay the bills for that one little child who has to make his light shine just like his parents someday, folks. So shout out to all the fathers, I guess. Glad I got that off my chest. Let's waste no time, folks. Let's get to it. Story number 5. The trade war, Chinese imports in the headlines. The trade war and Chinese imports, folks. NPR has a headline explaining how Trump tariff revenues have soared to 78%. The article goes on to explain how congressional forecasters say tariffs could help reduce the federal debt, but there's a but, could explain why inflation numbers are coming in higher and slowing up economic growth. Now, another report on the trade war comes from Reuters, published June 12th, explaining how China affirms that they have a trade deal with the U.S. Both stories highlight ongoing trade news staying in top headlines. That's keeping story number 5 in top headlines. So that's why I made it this week. Big headline. Story number 6. How is the job market? CNBC has a jobs report published June 9th with a headline stating that the job market is trash right now. The report explains how tough it has been for job seekers, especially recent graduates. The report goes on to explain how employers are hiring at a very slow pace, even as unemployment and layoffs are relatively low. Folks, this story is still developing. So story number 6 also made to the top this week, top 2 this week, because we're talking jobs. Big. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that I made this week for you to keep you informed. That's it. No gimmicks, no sales gimmicks, just the one passion and one goal to keep you informed. Folks, if you don't get up this early, you can check out the show on the website on Mondays. I upload all of the shows in a little time capsule on the website on our YouTube page. So if you don't get up this early, as they Brian, you ain't that important, you can check out the show on the website on the screen. Story number 7, how ICE and the immigration story got out of hand. In Trump's promise to crack down on illegal immigration, his plans have not come without opposition. The Guardian has a report explaining how protests across the U.S. have erupted after Trump has carried out his plans. He started to carry them out. I mean, ICE went in and started deporting people, and people got all upset about it. Now, that's serious. Now, demonstrations have been taking place in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Omaha, and Seattle. That's Nebraska. Now, the report explains how thousands attended the protests against the federal government's immigration plans. Folks, this story is still developing because there's a common sense approach to this, there's a legal approach, and then there's just an authoritarian approach. That's what Storm to 7 also made to the top this week. Big B. Story number 8 in the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week, folks, for you to keep you informed. Folks, if you do want to show some support, it does not take much. Every little bit counts. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Or you can stop by the store at 5648 Mark Street in Boardman, Ohio, and support anything we do at Method 8, an independent arts company. This is all independent productions here, so that means every little bit counts. Every little bit of business, every smile, everything. Story number 8, inflation is still in top headlines. Bloomberg has a report published June 7th and updated June 8th with an inflation update. The report says that inflation is on the upswing as consumers saw slightly faster inflation in May. The report states that inflation rose 0.3% in May, which is the most in 4 months. Now, the article is long and really keeps the reader updated and charts. It even has charts and stats. It goes as far as that on what lies ahead in the battle to combat inflation. With consumers still looking for ways to stretch their dollars, the story is still developing. That's why Story number 8 made it to the top this week. Well, folks, because we're talking money. Well, folks, there are top 8 local and international headlines developing news stories that I made this week. I hope you get something out of today's program. I always get something out of the research. As usual, I thank all the news outlets, the journalists, people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your news stories just to keep people informed. Folks, if you do want to show some support, it does not take much. All you gotta do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, cook something, watch something, read something, or to sponsor a program. Or you can stop at the store at 5648 Mark Street in Boardman, Ohio, and see my smiling face and buy something in the store. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week. Look through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed. Have a happy Father's Day, happy Emancipation Day, or whatever you celebrate. And on top of that, happy graduates congratulations to all the graduates. Thank you for tuning to the media this week with me, Brian West. Peace.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. Mediator is here.